two-lane road in February. Snow packed hard at the shoulders. A car resting against a snowbank, engine off, hazard lights on or not. Accounts differ even on that. A woman visible at the scene at 7:27 p.m. 19 minutes later, police arrive. The car is still there. Her belongings are still there. She is not. The road does not explain it. The snow does not explain it. The night gives back nothing.
The surviving evidence record for this case is limited. What follows represents the strongest available constraints, not a complete investigative picture. On February 9, 2004, Maura Murray crashed her car on Route 112 near Haverhill, New Hampshire. A local resident saw the car off the road at approximately 7:27 p.m. and called it in. A passing motorist stopped and spoke with a woman at the scene, a woman assumed to be Maura, who said she had already called for help and didn't need assistance. The motorist drove on. At 7:46 p.m., police arrived. Maura was gone. Her car remained. Her personal belongings remained. She has not been confirmed anywhere since. That is the official record. It is short, it is incomplete, and it contains one question the surface account cannot answer. In 19 minutes, on a winter road, with no confirmed transportation and no confirmed direction, how does a person leave without leaving a trace? That question is where this investigation begins. 19 minutes. That is the documented window. 7:27 p.m. to 7:46 p.m. between Maura's confirmed presence at the crash site and her confirmed absence. The obvious explanation is that she walked away. The road was there. Her legs were there. Nothing in the record proves she was physically unable to move. Walking is the simplest answer, and simple answers deserve the first test. But the first crack appears immediately. It was February in New Hampshire. The temperature was near freezing. The terrain off Route 112 is not flat. It is wooded, unlit, and difficult. In 19 minutes on foot, in those conditions, a person can cover perhaps a quarter mile, maybe a half mile at a controlled pace. That is not nothing, but it is a bounded radius. Searches of that radius, and beyond it, have not produced a trace. No clothing, no shelter evidence, no confirmed sighting along any road or trail. That doesn't close the on-foot path, but it pressures it, because the absence of any trace across that radius isn't just a gap in the record. It is a constraint. Something has to account for a person who was present, then absent for years, within a bounded geography that has been searched. The simple explanation does not collapse under this, but it does not come free either. The most common account of this case runs like this. Maura was in personal crisis, she crashed her car, and she walked into the woods or down the road to disappear voluntarily or to come to harm alone. It is a coherent narrative. It absorbs the personal circumstances documented in the days before the crash. It requires no other actor. It is, on its face, the most self-contained explanation available. Here is where it strains. Voluntary disappearance of this kind, sustained, undetected for years, requires the complete and simultaneous severing of every traceable system: phone records, financial records, identity use, human contact. That is a demanding operational set. It is not impossible, but it requires things to be true that the evidence has not supplied. A prearranged plan, access to resources outside the documented record, and the logistical capacity to vanish from a crash site in under 19 minutes into a structure that could sustain long-term absence. The personal crisis framing does not automatically supply those conditions. A person in crisis who walks into the woods in February does not typically produce a years-long absence from every traceable system. Those are two different outcomes, and they require different preconditions. The single narrative does not cleanly contain both. So the question it leaves is this: if one explanation requires this much undocumented infrastructure, what does the alternative require? And is that more or less demanding? Her belongings were left in the car, not some of them. The documented record establishes that personal items remained at the scene after Maura was gone. In a planned departure, voluntary disappearance with prior arrangement, leaving your belongings behind is either intentional or a failure of execution. Either fork carries weight. If intentional, she left them to signal distress, to stage the scene, or because she had what she needed elsewhere. That requires prior preparation, items, access, or resources staged at a location she was moving toward. That explanation doesn't come free. It requires a destination she could reach in under 19 minutes without a vehicle, or a vehicle she had pre-arranged. If a failure of execution, she left in a hurry, under pressure, or in a condition that impaired her judgment. That narrows the departure window further and raises the question of whether the departure was fully voluntary in the functional sense. Both forks converge on the same operational requirement: the departure from that crash site in under 19 minutes in February on a rural road required either a vehicle or a very specific and pre-arranged on-foot destination close enough to reach in that window. There is no evidence of a pre-arranged on-foot destination. There is no evidence of a vehicle she owned or arranged. That gap is not a conclusion. But it is a pressure point the evidence has not yet resolved. What does that force us to reconsider? It forces us to ask whether the departure method, vehicle versus foot, is actually the irreducible question this case turns on. The motorist's statement is a different kind of problem. A passing driver stopped and spoke to a woman at the crash scene. That woman, assumed to be Maura, said she had already called for help and did not need assistance. The motorist left. This is documented. But the phone records that would confirm or deny that call have never been produced in a form that resolves the question. Either Maura placed a call before that motorist arrived, or she did not. Those are the only two options. The call either exists in a carrier record, or it does not. This is not a philosophical ambiguity. It is a binary that a complete phone record extraction, including failed connection attempts, not just completed calls, would resolve. Here is what constraint A alone cannot tell us. The motorist's account introduces a second actor into the 19-minute window. If Maura told that motorist she had called for help, she was either communicating with someone who was coming, which requires a destination and a contact, or she was creating a false account to discourage the motorist from staying. Constraint A established that the departure required either a vehicle or a pre-arranged destination. Constraint B now forces a harder question. If she told that motorist help was coming, was help already on its way? And if so, from where and who? So now we have a new problem. The statement to the motorist either documents an outgoing communication that has never been confirmed, or it documents a deliberate misdirection. Both of those are uncomfortable. Neither is resolved. Here is what both constraints jointly require that neither produces alone. Constraint A establishes that the departure needed a vehicle or a pre-arranged close destination. Constraint B establishes that Maura, or the woman at the scene, told a witness that help had been called. These two facts together do not just describe a departure. They describe a departure with a stated reason for the motorist not to stay. That combination, a woman alone at a crash site who declines, offered help, who claims assistance is already en route, who is then gone before that assistance arrives in any documented form, forces a structural question that the simpler narratives resist. Either the statement to the motorist was true and traceable, or it was designed to clear the scene. Those are not the same thing, and they require different operational conditions. If the statement was true, a call was made, someone was coming, and that someone either arrived in the 19-minute window or did not arrive at all. If they arrived, they were the vehicle. If they did not arrive, Maura was still waiting, and the on-foot departure becomes the only surviving path for the remainder of that window. If the statement was false, a misdirection, then the scene was being managed. That does not require naming an actor, but it requires that the woman at the scene had a reason to discourage the motorist from staying and waiting. That reason is operationally significant, regardless of what it was. The three paths the interaction opens. Path 1. Maura called someone. That person came, and she left in their vehicle. The call is unconfirmed. The vehicle is undocumented. Path 2. Maura left on foot. The statement was a misdirection or a misremembering by the motorist, and she entered the terrain. No trace has been recovered. Path 3. Someone else was already present at or near the scene, unknown to Maura or known, and the departure was not fully under her control. The single question the collision produces that this case cannot yet answer: was the statement to the motorist a true report of an outgoing call, or was it the last documented behavior of someone actively managing what happened next? The bone fragments found on Loon Mountain in September 2021 were the closest the record came to a physical trace. They were tested. They were determined not to belong to Maura. That removes Loon Mountain as a confirmed location and closes that specific geographic lead. What remains after that elimination? The physical search radius has been tested across multiple areas without confirmation. This does not eliminate the on-foot path, but it forces that path to absorb the weight of a prolonged, unrecovered absence across searched terrain. On-foot survival, or on-foot harm, without physical recovery in a searched area is a condition the evidence has not supplied. The single question the evidence cannot answer: where does a person go from Route 112 in February, on foot or by vehicle, without leaving a recoverable trace across more than 2 decades? At this point, the investigation has removed everything that cannot hold under the constraints. What remains is not a list of theories. It is the boundary of what is still possible. Path 1. Vehicle departure, arranged or opportunistic. What happened? Maura departed the crash scene in a vehicle, either one she contacted before the motorist arrived, or one that stopped independently between 7:27 p.m. and 7:46 p.m. and is not documented. What it explains: the 19-minute window, the absence of on-foot trace evidence, the statement to the motorist about help being called. What it requires: a vehicle was present at or near the scene in that window. Moderate. What must be true: at least one vehicle stopped between the resident's report and police arrival that has never been identified or documented. What evidence is missing? A reconstructed traffic log for Route 112 in that window, including any available gas station, toll, or business camera records from the corridor. If the "help was called" statement was true, a completed or attempted call exists in carrier records. Moderate. What must be true? Maura's carrier records for that window contain an outgoing call or connection attempt to a specific number. What evidence is missing? Full unredacted carrier data, including failed and incomplete connection attempts, not just completed calls. Path 2. On-foot departure into terrain. What happened? Maura left the crash site on foot, entered the surrounding terrain, and has not been recovered. What it explains: the 19-minute window is physically sufficient for a quarter to half-mile movement. No vehicle documentation is required. What it requires: she survived or came to harm in terrain that has been searched without result. Demanding. What must be true? She entered an area either not covered by search operations or covered inadequately, and no physical trace has surfaced across more than 20 years. What evidence is missing? A comprehensive, documented map of all searched areas with search methodology and depth, which would establish whether geographic gaps exist. The statement to the motorist was either inaccurate, misremembered, or a deliberate misdirection. Moderate. What must be true? No call was placed, and the motorist's recollection of the specific claim contains an error, or Maura stated it for a reason unrelated to an actual call. What evidence is missing? The same carrier records as Path 1. Their absence would support this condition. Their presence would pressure it. Path 1 requires fewer undocumented conditions than Path 2 when the motorist's statement is treated as accurate. Path 2 requires fewer undocumented conditions if that statement is treated as inaccurate. The weight of the solution space shifts, depending entirely on what the carrier records contain. We don't know which of these occurred, but everything else no longer holds. These are the only ways this could have happened. Either Maura Murray left that crash site in a vehicle, arranged or opportunistic, or she left on foot into terrain that has not returned her. There is no third physical path out of that location in those conditions. The road and the woods are the only options. One requires an undocumented vehicle. The other requires an undocumented absence from every searched area for more than 20 years. Both are uncomfortable. The evidence has not resolved which. And everything turns on one question. Does a completed or attempted outgoing call exist in Maura Murray's carrier records for the window between 7:27 p.m. and 7:46 p.m. on February 9, 2004? That record is not a hypothesis. It either exists in a carrier archive or it does not. The New Hampshire Division of Emergency Services and Communications holds the 911 call record from the local resident who reported the crash. A record that may document whether a second call from Maura's line was logged in that same window. A full request to that agency, combined with an unredacted carrier extraction covering failed and incomplete connection attempts, not just completed calls, would answer the question the motorist's statement has left open for 20 years. The motorist heard her say help was coming. A carrier record would establish whether that statement had a number behind it. If that record produces an outgoing call, the on-foot path becomes difficult to maintain. Someone was called, someone was expected. The vehicle path carries the weight. If the record returns nothing, no call, no attempt, no connection, then the statement to the motorist was either a misremembering or a misdirection, and the on-foot path must carry the full load of what followed. That carrier record is the difference between a woman who called someone and a woman who said she did.
A car against a snowbank, hazard lights maybe, personal belongings in the seat, a road that goes two directions from a single point, 20 years of searches that found bone fragments belonging to someone else. She was there, then she wasn't. The road still runs through Haverhill. No one who drives it can say with certainty which way she went.